the heart of really what we come to do well is understand our clients.
Understanding what the needs of the family are.
Help them make some decisions.
Preparing the next generation for what's to come.
Being on a first-name basis, getting to know their stories.
Working through their questions, their concerns, and figuring out the solution that's best.
They trust us enough to come in and help them solve that.
You really feel at the end of the day when you add value, there's a great sense of accomplishment and reward.
Henry David Thoreau once said, "It's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see." In managing wealth, there's an awful lot to look at. Taxes and trusts, family meetings and bonds, and everything in between. It's why we rely on those who know each of these fields so deeply that they can see where others are merely looking, who can focus on what's best for clients over generations. After all, that's what expertise is.
Here's the really good at 7. We're in the 4,000,007.
And they're off.
100,000 is all. 5 million now once.
Coming up the rail. Opened up and won it by 7.
Gonna give 8,200,000.
At the line, it'll be close.
5,000,002. 5,000,002.
A 3-year-old wins the stall.
1,000,002. 1,000,005. Everybody 5 you.
55.09 seconds for the first half mile.
Round 2. Nobody going to go 6-2.
And he went 3 for the 16th to go.
500,000. That's 700.
Steady progress to nail them all on the wire. Photo finish for the win.
This land, full of possibility, treasure, and heritage. Bill Justice knows this land, and he's regarded as the most respected farm broker in central Kentucky. Bill is trusted. He's depended upon for his knowledge and integrity, and his team at Justice Real Estate knows the horse industry firsthand.
Lexington, Kentucky is the horse capital of the world, and we strive to keep it that way. A very special place. At Justice Real Estate, we care about this land, the families, and the horses that thrive here. Justice Real Estate. Find your place in the bluegrass.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2025 Virtual Thoroughbred Owner Conference Series, and I'm Gary Falter with the Jockey Club. And this is our 4th panel in our series of 10 panels that take place this year. And you'll find our full schedule on our website, ownerview.com, where we'll have the dates, the times, and the topics for each of the upcoming webinars. Now, today's panel topic, we're going to talk about promoting thoroughbred ownership, very important topic. And as the panel progresses, please use the Q&A feature that you'll see on your Microsoft Teams screen to submit questions. And at the end of the session, we'll try to get to as many questions as time allows. So before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of our sponsors, starting with the presenting sponsors. And those would be Bessemer Trust, Keeneland, and Stoll Keenan Ogden. And today our panel sponsors are the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association and Justice Real Estate, which I believe you just saw their ads a moment ago. And our Q&A sponsor is West Point Thoroughbreds. And our sincere thank you to all the sponsors for their continued support, thoroughbred ownership. You can see all of our sponsors on the screen now. They help us put on these webinars at no charge to you. So thank you very much to all the sponsors. Okay, so next, we got a great group of panelists, and I'd like to introduce our panelists. So let's go ahead and get them on the screen here. So I'm going to start off with Tom Rooney. Welcome, Tom. Okay, so Tom, are you? There you are. Okay, he's the president and the CEO of the National Thoroughbred Racing Association, also called the NTRA. And Tom is also a thoroughbred breeder and owner, and his family are the majority owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, go Steelers.
We'll see.
All right, yeah, a couple good draft choices in my opinion: Jack Sawyer and Will Howard.
You must be from Ohio State.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, next I'd like to introduce Erin Birkenhauer. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks for having me on today.
Okay, she is the Chief Operating Officer of West Point Thoroughbreds. Erin is the daughter of West Point founder Terry Finley, and she also competes in eventing events and was the second highest placed amateur at one of the Thoroughbred Makeover shows. So very good. Next, I'll introduce Michael Behrens. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Gary.
Okay, so he's the founder and CEO of My Racehorse, who we're all very familiar with. And My Racehorse is the first ever fully securities compliant micro share racehorse ownership platform. And we're going to talk about that some more here in a little bit. Michael was a former marketing and advertising executive, and he turned his attention to thoroughbred ownership in 2017. Next is Tina Bond. Hi, Tina.
Hi, everybody.
Tina is the president of the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, also called NYTHA. She's married to 007, James Bond, our own 007. She's the managing partner for Bond Racing. And Tina and Jim, they own and manage and reside at Song Hill Thoroughbreds, a 100-acre farm in the town of Stillwater, New York. And Tina has played a pivotal role in the creation of the Heart of Horse Racing, which you may have heard of. And we're going to talk about that more today. Next is Rachel Miller. Welcome, Rachel.
It's great to be here, Gary.
Great. So Rachel is the digital marketing manager for America's Best Racing. She leads the creative social media strategy and influencer partnership with ABR, America's Best Racing. Rachel oversees the program A Stake in Stardom, another program we're going to hear more about, which is a growing initiative designed to connect new fans and owners. And most recently, we've all seen this, I believe, she helped drive the viral success of Griffin Johnson and Sandman's appearance at the Derby this year. And that's expanding our sports reach to millions of new fans. And next we have speaker is Price Bell. Hi, Price. Great. Price.
Hello, Gary and team.
Price grew up working for his family's Mill Ridge farm and is currently the general manager for the farm, and obviously grew up in horse racing. He's one of the founders and serves on the board of Light Up Racing that we're going to learn more about today. So welcome, Price.
Thank you. And I want to give a hat tip and appreciation for Dr. Jeff Burke, who is one of the attendees, who also serves on the Light Up Racing board and provides a significant amount of expertise from the veterinary community on it.
Absolutely. So. Yes, Dr. Burke. So today I expect our topic's going to go about anywhere from 75 to 90 minutes, a little bit longer than normal. We'll have the Q&A at the end. So if you have a question for any of the panelists, please submit your questions as we go. So let's get started. We've talked about this many, many times in these webinars, how important it is for our industry to have a solid, growing ownership base. We are many, many stakeholders in our industry, but owners are probably the most important investor in our sport. And in fact, without owners, we just simply don't have a product or an industry. So today we're going to focus our discussion on efforts within the industry to promote thoroughbred ownership. So we'll start off, I'd just like to highlight a little bit about OwnerView. We'll start the discussion with 2011. McKinsey came out with a report that the Jockey Club asked them to do. That was 14 years ago. And we asked them to come up with some recommendations to improve the industry. And one of the things they came back with was to create some new tools and resources to promote thoroughbred ownership. So ownerview.com was at that time created, and that was in May of 2012. And shortly after that, the owner conference, both the in-person and the online series, began in 2014. So you can see on the screen the OwnerView logo. The website is a valuable resource for anyone to research areas that impact ownership. You can research trainers to your heart content, because we have the statistics for every active trainer in the industry. Racing syndicates, we have many of the racing syndicates, from A to Z listed on the website. If you want to attend auctions, we have all the auction information listed. Various state incentive programs from A to Z listed, and all their various programs. Licensing, all the different states, we have links to how do you apply for your license and how do you get your license, and a lot more. In fact, there's 17 menu items, and I'm not going to go through all of them on OwnerView, but the best part is it's been there for a long time now, and it's all free. So anyone can go to the website and research to their heart's content. So we started the in-person conferences in 2014, and they took place at Keeneland, Gulfstream Park, Del Mar, Santa Anita twice. We were at Churchill Downs, Saratoga, and those conferences, just did a lot of good, a lot of great networking, a lot of good information. But for the past 4 years, we've offered the free webinar series that you're viewing today. And, just a shameless plug for OwnerView, I'm very pleased to say that OwnerView and the Owner Conference has been the longest lasting direct effort to attract, educate, and retain thoroughbred owners. So I'm very pleased that it's been around this long. But I'm not going to spend any more time on OwnerView. Feel free to go to the website and you can research information that's relevant to ownership at no charge to you. So let's get into our panelists here. So recently it was announced that Kentucky Congressman Andy Barr introduced a bill in Congress titled the Regulation Advancement for Capital Enhancement Act of 2025, or I think it's also called the RACE Act. And it's a bill that aims to simplify the registration process required by the SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. So the bill, it'll increase the ability to offer fractional and micro share ownership. So racing syndicates and these racing clubs, hopefully it'll help in that area. So next to speak is NTRA President Tom Rooney. So Tom, are you there? There you are. Okay, can you give the group here an idea of what this bill is all about and what's the likelihood of it passing and any timing on it?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a bill that Andy Barr, as you mentioned, has dropped, as we used to say when I was in Congress, in the Financial Services Committee, which essentially amends the Securities Act of 1933. And what I'm going to do is go over what the system is now versus what Andy's bill, and then sort of the inside baseball track that it could be on to hopefully become law. So if you'll bear with me, this gets very technical, and with regard to my racehorse or West Point, I'll leave that to Aaron and Michael to get into the specifics of their companies. But keep in mind that this RACE Act, which obviously helps what we're trying to do here with those entities, encapsulates a lot of different industries. It's not just racehorses, and that's quite frankly because when you submit a bill like this, it's much easier to pass if it's not for something issue specific like just what we're trying to do in racing. So It is called the RACE Act. It is proposed by the member of Congress from Lexington. So the point I think that Andy was trying to do here is to help us, but it does incorporate much more. Essentially, the current system is this, that a company submits an offering, in our case, it would be a horse, to the SEC. The SEC would then review that offering. They may approve, they may deny. Usually they ask a lot of questions. And then they'll ask clarifying questions. And the company has a certain amount of time to respond. And then after those responses, the SEC will then review again. We're talking about the government here, so keep in mind it's a timing thing. Possibly asking even more additional questions before approving or denying. For each new offering, in this case a horse, the same process is repeated, even if 90% of that offering is identical to the previous one. So only the horse's name and valuation changes with respect to us. The problem here is delays. So each offering can take months, 6 months or more for approval, limiting the capital available to these companies and causing instances where a horse may have actually even had to race before it could be offered to the public. Where obviously those of you that own racehorses know the timing of when the trainer says he's ready to go or she's ready to go, and so that could be problematic. So what the RACE Act does, is, again, it amends the Securities Act of 1933. The first couple steps are basically the same. A company would submit the offering to the SEC, in this case, a horse. The SEC refuse, ask questions, could at that point approve or deny, but typically there's questions, there's responses. They might ask more questions. What the Race Act essentially does is once the first offering, the first horse is approved, similar future offerings would be automatically approved. So they don't have to go through this every time there's a new horse submitted. And that creates the efficiency for us. The companies can get more horses offered to the public faster. They don't have to go through this entire process every time a new horse is offered, generating more capital, obviously, to continue buying more horses. Now, racetracks typically don't use what is part of this Securities Act of 1933, this thing called Regulation A, Tier 2, directly to raise capital. Their profitability is driven by maintaining a strong local horse population. As larger fields result in higher betting handles and increased attendance, which is obviously both crucial to revenue sources. Historically, ownership was limited to people that could afford to buy a horse and race it on their own. But today, over 60% of racehorses globally are purchased via partnerships or syndicates. Unfortunately, the regulatory limitations in the U.S. prevent our industry from fully benefiting from vibrant global syndications, limiting the growth potential of local horse populations, and obviously then racetrack profitability. Horse syndications in the U.S. typically fall under securities regulations that limit participation primarily to accredited investors, which is approximately 5% of Americans, to offer horse ownerships to the remaining 95% of the racing fans that might not be accredited investors. These syndicators, they have to rely on this Regulation A, Tier 2, or similar regulation exemptions. I know this is very much in the weeds, but it is a very simple change in the text of the bill, of the law, to amend it to allow for qualification delays for these filings that we have to deal with now, which may extend as long as 4 or 6 months or longer. And that significantly discourages syndicators from making horse ownership broadly acceptable, crowdfunding, as we say.
Okay.
And so what the Race Act, again, does addresses this issues. It maintains strong governance standards and consumer protections by reducing unnecessarily qualification delays for experienced syndicators. It allows syndication to begin immediately after filing the required disclosure, closely mirroring successful regulatory models used internationally, like in Australia. So again, without stepping too much on the toes of Michael and Aaron and their presentation, Andy has dropped this bill in the House. As those of you that follow politics know, individual bills like this tend not to just go to the committee, then the House floor, then the Senate, then the president, like you'd see on Schoolhouse Rock. Usually nowadays things are attached to other larger must-pass bills that are going to get to the president's desk. And so if you don't see the Race Act as a standalone bill necessarily move forward, that does not mean that this bill will not move as part of some bigger package. So the bottom line is basically just amending what the law already says, that if you're going to submit a horse, and then the future submissions are essentially the same, meaning, you know, it's a horse being used for racing purposes, that every time that somebody that wants to be part of that crowdfunding doesn't have to, per horse, per investor, go through this whole rigmarole of being approved, denied, questions, delayed. Obviously, we have a very finite amount of time that a specific racehorse can be ready to go and race, and to be able to jump on that train while it's happening, waiting for the government to approve is obviously very cumbersome. So Andy's bill basically just simplifies and says we're just basically asking for the same thing again, and that if everything went according to plan for the first one, that this is essentially a rubber stamp as you move forward. So there are certain differences between groups like big syndications like a West Point for Aaron or My Racehorse, based on the amount of money. Like if we're talking about $75 million versus up to $5 million, we're just trying to clarify that those things should be simpler and more streamlined. So you may ask what the likelihood of this bill becoming law is.
Right.
We have worked through Congressman Barr's office, several of the members of the committee that would approve this, and also the Ways and Means Committee, which would obviously have a say in this. They deal with everything tax related. And we've reached out to those office. In my case personally, luckily, even though I've been out of Congress for 10 years, the people that are still there have moved up the ranks to the level of chairman or right under chairman. So I've reached out to them personally, asking them to sign on and support Andy's bill. And then once we get through the House committees and get a vote on the floor, whether it's a standalone or part of another bill, that this would be something that would be taken up by the Senate and signed into law by the president. Now, one more thing, if I may, and this is just my opinion, as those of you know that are on this call, Congressman Barr is seeking higher office. It does not hurt that he's asking for this bill to become law in a political sense, that the leadership in the Republican Party would want to give him a victory or two to be able to campaign on. So if you ask, typically what something like this is chances of becoming law, I'd say, it depends. Nothing happens in this town, and I'm speaking to you from Washington right now. Nothing happens in this town without leadership moving it forward through the Rules Committee and getting it on the House floor. And then nothing happens in the Senate without Senator Thune and the president there wanting it to become law. So politically speaking, that was the policy part. Politically speaking, Andy does have the benefit of being somebody who is trying to take the place of Senator McConnell, keeping that seat in the Republican side of the aisle, and having a victory like this under his belt, that he can go back to his constituents and say that he made horse ownership easier, more accessible to people like some of my staff that have been very successful in the last year with MyRacehorse.com. And so I do have a good feeling about this actually becoming a reality. So we're going to keep working it up here, our team, and talking to members of the House and the Senate and leadership to try to make them understand why this isn't really a controversial act. Andy's trying to get Democrats on board. So it's something that I think may actually come to fruition, despite what you see in Washington most of the time.
Okay.
So with that.
So what can we do as participants in the industry to help push this along? Is there anything we can do?
I think absolutely. I mean, I know, I see Tina there, and I know that there's a lot of people probably on this call, maybe from Kentucky or elsewhere, but certainly reaching out to, and I know you hear this all the time, but you have credibility when you're calling your congressman and you're asking them to sign on to Andy's bill and to become a co-sponsor. Obviously, bills that have a lot of co-sponsors have a lot more juice, so to speak, when you're going to leadership and saying, hey, this has got 50 co-sponsors and it's bipartisan. It's not controversial, and it just simplifies, a bill that's from 1933 to come more into the modern era of ownership of like things, crowdfunding, so to speak. So I would strongly recommend calling or emailing your local congressman and asking them to support this. I can tell you, as a former member, I would always talk to my staff about what people are calling about, and things that are this specific, that isn't just some, postcard that they might get in the mail that's, mass produced, is much more interesting to people like me to look into, or to talk to Andy and say, hey, what's your bill about? And yeah, go ahead and throw my name on there as well. So
anyone that calls their congressman, should they reference this as the Race Act?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I would use Andy's name too. Andy is very well liked amongst his colleagues on the Republican and Democrat side of the aisle. That could change as he gets into a campaign for the Senate. But, but by and large, if they reference the Race Act to co-sponsor that with their local congressman or congresswoman, it definitely would help.
Okay, perfect, great. Michael, Aaron, Tina, you're all involved with racing partnerships. Anything you want to add to that before we move on?
I would just say, this would be game changing for our business. And so, as somebody who participates in global syndication, I'll tell you that the most vibrant markets, we hear all the time about Australia and Ireland and the UK and Asia in terms of their ability to bring in mass syndication. And all three have addressed this in one way or another. And this is a way of kind of addressing it in a different, but kind of same way. Australia has some very, very clear securities exemptions and rule that Britain have made it very easy to do what we all try to do. Great Britain, the FCA gave a hobby exemption, and the US, just the first time it's been addressed, to bring some efficiency to the process. So it is a great way. It's a simple way. It protects the consumer protection, which is so important to kind of the SEC. And I think the idea that it has the best of both worlds, consumer protection and scale for our industry, it'd be game changing.
Okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah, and I think,
go ahead, Aaron.
We're going to talk about this as we go through the panelist questions. I think, attracting younger people to the business is going to be huge. Tech savvy young people who, the barriers to entry, like this is just going to make it so much easier for people to dip their toe into ownership and, really just experience kind of the lifestyle side that is so important. And then, develop into owners over time.
Okay, yeah, and we'll talk about that more. So Tom, I know you have other meetings there on Capitol Hill. You're welcome to stay with us, or if you need to drop off, we certainly understand and appreciate your time.
I've got a little time, but thank you all very much, and I appreciate you letting me talk to the group.
Great. Okay, so let's move on. We've got a lot to get through. So we got several initiatives that are promoting ownership. We've got all our speakers here to talk about some of those. So I'm just going to go around the virtual table, I'll call it here, and just ask questions and give everybody a chance to chime in. So I'm going to start off with Michael from My Racehorse. So talk about what your organization is doing or has done to promote ownership. And I think you might even have a video that we can look at here when you're ready to show. So Michael, go ahead and kind of give us your thoughts on promoting ownership.
It's perfect that I get to go right after Tom, because for those that don't know my background, I spent 20 years in marketing, and I got the bug to try to figure out if I could bring any of my marketing experience to horse racing and promote a sport that I loved. And actually, I watched the 2011 Jockey Roundtable when McKinsey had presented their information where OwnerView was born, and I was very inspired by the idea that there was this argument that there was a lack of trial for horse racing. And I thought that trial would be something that could be embraced in a different way. If you think about great brands like Uber, your first ride is free. You think about like Netflix, your first 30 days is free. Consumers demand taste of something before they go all in. So the idea behind My Racehorse is, could we create an ecosystem, a platform that would allow everybody the chance to be able to try the sport and try ownership? And the hypothesis would be, if you tried it, you'd love it. And so that's how My Racehorse was born. And actually, I met with Aaron's father, Terry, and he was the one that kind of, kind of got me up to speed on the reason it hadn't progressed in the United States was because of antiquated securities laws. And I thought through technology and through some evolution to how we think about kind of operating within the existing securities laws, we could make it work. So that's how My Racehorse was born. It was born to make it available to all. It was born to democratize it, use a very technology-centric and securities-compliant way of bringing horse racing ownership to the masses. And so we have a little video that kind of just talks about kind of, where we've come and what we're all about since we kind of embarked on that journey.
Okay, great. I remember when you and I talked many, many years ago, I thought My Racehorse is a game changer in the industry. So you've got a lot of clients, a lot of members. Are you able to share with the audience here what's your membership look like?
Right now, we publicly say just over 100,000. So we don't give out kind of our exact numbers as a private, but we do have over 100,000 people across the globe, and it grows. I just logged in. I saw there was over 2,000 people that signed up in just the last kind of 3 weeks for my reports, which is kind of cool to see. 2,000 brand new owners come in. We've been around for 5 years, and to see that 2,000 brand new people came into horse racing just in this last few weeks. It definitely keeps us very energized and focused on the fact that this is something that it was more than just capitalizing on pent up demand. I think it's something sustainable for the industry to attract and engage new people.
Okay. And firsthand what that SEC process was. I mean, are you excited about what this bill could do for My Racehorse and others?
Yeah, I mean, I do really think it's the catalyst that will create a lot more innovation. It'll give us operational efficiencies. It'll bring more people into the game to be able to syndicate in an efficient way. I mean, the cost burden that we had to take on to pull this off were pretty ridiculous, and it really would kind of keep most entrepreneurs away from doing it. I mean, we were blessed to have, B. Wayne Hughes as a partner. He's an innovator, yes, and he was committed to this idea. He wanted to democratize ownership, and he was willing to help kind of pay the bill to make that happen. And the reality is we need more efficiencies. Entrepreneurs aren't going to do things for altruistic motivations. They're going to need the ability to have some upside if they do something well. And so if you can take away these ridiculous kind of legal burdens and taxes that were basically bestowed to operate within the antiquated environment, I think you'll see a lot more entrepreneurism.
Okay, so it's now a good time to show your video?
Yep, it's good.
Okay, let's go ahead and cue up the video for My Racehorse. So Michael, that's amazing. So how long have you been at this?
We got federal approval in 2019 to be able to launch. We launched in the last week of June of 2019 to be able to launch in the United States. And a couple of years later, we launched in Australia. Once we kind of prove out the efficacy of it, found out that people really enjoyed the hyper-fractional ownership. We launched in Ireland, the UK, and Australia right after that. So, just watching that's pretty amazing ride to go from kind of ideation. Actually, I remember talking to Terry at Del Mar, and he was talking about how many people have had the idea, and he's like, you don't know what you're in for. He's like, I wish you the best of luck. He's been a good kind of help along the way. And it definitely took a lot to make it work technically and legally and marketing wise. But when you see that, you see 100,000 people came into the game. And I know so many that went on to own their own horses directly and join other syndicates and be participatory. It's pretty self-gratifying.
Yes, absolutely. And we'll have more to talk about with My Racehorse as we move on. So next up, let's go to Rachel. Hey, Rachel, America's Best Racing. Yeah, so you've kind of been very involved in this Stake in Stardom program. Can you talk about that? And I know you've got a video to share. So talk about what that's all about.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the talk of all this McKinsey report from 2011 was the genesis of America's Best Racing as well, kind of founded not specifically to bring new owners in, although that's one of the many journeys that people can take once they're a fan and interested in the sport. So everything that we're doing is trying to get horse racing, mainly through digital media, on the screens of people that otherwise would never see it, would never care. And one of the huge pillars on which we have started doing that's now in its 4th year, is this program called Stake in Stardom. So West Point Thoroughbreds was our first partner 4 years ago on that, and now other syndicates are coming to us, and we're working on putting more things together. So we've been at it for years, but obviously not every horse makes it to the Kentucky Derby and has as tremendous of a following as Griffin Johnson. So this journey started a year and a half ago. He attended the Derby and kind of got to see the way that everything works. And again, West Point has been phenomenal, and Terry Finley at kind of taking people under their wing, making them feel like a real legitimate owner through the process. And yeah, it's been amazing to see the results come out of that, and how many people have just started watching and engaging with horse racing that otherwise would not have. And while a lot of Griffin's following is young people, one day they're going to have the money and the means to hopefully be involved in racehorse ownership in a more meaningful way. And until they can fork out to be part of a bigger syndicate, like Michael said, My Racehorse is kind of the perfect initial journey for anyone that just wants a little taste. So Shannon, I'll let you take it away with the video that details Stake in Stardom and how that program's worked out.
I'm Joey Molinaro. I'm in New Orleans, and apparently I'm a horse owner now. First time at the Derby, I walk in at 9 a.m. The guy says, hey, can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. I say, this is my kind of place. About to watch my horse Binko run. Go Binko, go. Let's do it. Wow, this is actually it, huh? This is the big time, the Mecca, the cathedral. Love it.
We got Alex Rossi, IndyCar driver and thoroughbred owner.
It keeps getting better and better. The more I understand, the more I learn, and the more I appreciate the sport. Such a cool thing to be a part of, and just so thankful to everyone at America's Best for bringing me along and letting me be a part of it.
Hello everyone, I am so excited. Today is the World Championship of Horse Racing. I am here in Del Mar, California with America's Best Racing.
The name of my horse is absolutely hot. I got fans that are waiting in line at the ladies' room, and that's what I love. We are out here at the racetrack, and honey, we're one with the people.
All right, it's morning. We're at the stables, and we're going to see Parna.
You guys sticking around? I'm gonna go check out stuff. This is my first Derby. I mean, this is incredible. Look at all these people.
I think as a thoroughbred owner, what I'm looking forward to most, the feeling of like that's a little part of me out there. You know, that's really kind of why you get into this, is to feel like part of you is out there.
You might be wondering, how did I get here? There's actually an amazing program called Stake in Stardom, which is basically for influencers to actually get a stake in horses and promote horse racing itself. So I'm with West Point Thoroughbreds. Sandman's first race about to start. We're heading out to the track to watch him. Let's go.
Oh my gosh! We're going to the Derby! We're going to the Derby! We're going to the Kentucky Derby!
It's your time, it's your show. Watch you go, you got to let them know. Watch you go, it's your time, it's your show. Watch you go, you got to let them know.
Come on, Johnny! Come on! Please! Come on! Oh! Come on! Come on! Come on!
I mean, I think that illustrates it much better than I could talk about. It's exciting and it's fun to watch. And again, this is just one of the multitude of ways that we try and showcase everything that makes our sport amazing. And it's those ownership journeys. Although we have done a ton of work also collaboratively with My Racehorse. We were out in Dubai with them, showcasing their owner experiences, and yeah, just amplifying everything by way of social media, and also letting influencers then take the reins, kind of break that third wall of what actually happens behind the scenes that demystifies racing, so that they all feel like they're an owner in some way, which is exactly what I think happened with Sandman. He is the people's horse, the horse of the internet, and even people that are not remotely close to actually being able to own a horse that might be 16 years old, they feel like they do because they have full behind the scenes access. And it's again just one of the first building blocks, but it's exciting to see it take off this year.
Well, and what I love about America's Best Racing is you guys have done a great job bringing new fans into our sport, young people, old people like myself, all different walks of life. And I've always heard this, every owner was a fan first. So you're reaching an awful lot of people, and we sure do appreciate it. So we'll talk more about that and social media as we go on. So thank you very much, Rachel. So next, let's bring in Aaron from West Point Thoroughbred. So Aaron, why don't you talk about your efforts with West Point to bring new owners into the business?
Well, it's been truly remarkable, having Griffin on board with Sandman. And I think one of the things that he's done super well is blend, the love of the horse and the hands-on behind the scenes with the social aspect. Him and his girlfriend Macy have really, they've dove into fashion and meeting other influencers, meeting other owners. So I think showing the younger generation that, the mystique of getting your hands on a horse, we all know that is super duper special. And the one thing that, we always talk about is, these young people, as they start having families and stuff, this is really something that people can do with their whole family. It's a sport that they can, everybody can be involved in. And we are actually seeing more and more people get their older parents involved. Like, hey, my parents are getting a little older, they're retired. Like, this is something I can do with them, or this is something that I can do with my kids. So having somebody like Griffin really kind of put, that idea in young people's head, I think is really, really cool. And just like the genuine love that he has for Sandman, and the time with him spent at the barn, you can see that it actually kind of worked out perfectly. We have a lot of horses, and the fact that Griffin got matched up with Sandman and Sandman made it to the Derby, I mean, it really, the stars just kind of did align.
What are the chances?
Yeah. So you can go ahead and show the video of, we have a follow-up video if you don't mind to show it.
What's up, boy? I never had anything to do with thoroughbreds. I grew up in the Midwest, tiny town called Paris, Illinois. When I met him, he was just so lovable. Something about him in his eyes, it was just like, this guy, he knows what's going on and he's special. He's actually really chill. Hi, my name's Griffin Johnson. The horse world calls me an influencer, so I'm gonna own that, and I'm a part owner of Sandman.
When we got Griffin in on Sandman, he really took the bull by the horns. All of a sudden, we had an influencer who had 17 million followers who fell in love with one of our horses and was all in right away.
They're off in the 89th Arkansas Derby.
Go! Go, 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 go!
And Sandman, he's running a race heading to Kentucky.
Once he won the Arkansas Derby, that's when the switch flipped.
We're going to the Derby! We're going to the Derby! We're going to the Kentucky Derby!
He put a vision and a strategy together to show what we're all about through the eyes of an owner of Sandman. And the Griffin Johnson effect on the 2025 Derby was far and wide and deep.
It is a place that many dream of coming to, Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. It is Derby Day.
Between Griffin and Metallica, I've been training for 47 years. I've never seen anything like it.
It was the most incredible experience that I've had in my life.
They're all in line. We're ready for the start. They're off in the Kentucky Derby.
You know, I put out a video that obviously went super viral about how I felt about the Derby.
I just wanted to come on here and make a video to say thank you. Definitely not very good at being vulnerable. It takes a lot to make me cry, but I just never saw myself getting here. So, I know I'm young and I got lucky for my first time, but to say that I got here is probably the first time in my life I felt like I did something that was actually special.
I actually woke up the next day after the Derby. I had 6,000 DMs of just people saying thank you and how it was their kids' first time watching the Derby or their grandkids. It was really something. Yeah.
This is the future of our sport. Getting Sandman to the winner's circle would put us in a stratosphere that we've never been. And, you know, I say let's make it happen.
So Sandman ran a very nice third in the Preakness and sat out the Belmont, but I understand he's pointing towards another big race coming up.
Yes, he is all systems go for the Jim Dandy. It'll be a great race. It looks like we may have to contend with the top two from the Belmont, who are certainly very, very talented. So it should be fun.
Great, great. Okay, Aaron. So Tina, let's talk about the New York Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and what you all are doing with the Heart of Horse Racing. Can you kind of give us some background on that? And I know you've got a video to show us.
Sure. So I've been in the business for 40 years as a trainer. I'm a breeder, not a trainer. My husband's the trainer. And it's just, this sport just takes you on journeys that you never thought you'd go. I never thought that I joined the NYTHA board 11 years ago. I never thought that I would be president, but it was just something that I felt that I wanted to promote the sport and to help the people in New York as well. So as the president of NYTHA, I brought it to the board and said, I really think that we should explore a national marketing campaign for horse racing. And so here we are on the journey. We hired Finn Marketing, Finn Partners out of New York City. They're a global company. And we've started this journey. We've taken the approach to show the people that are in the sport and what it means to be part of the sport, to grow the fans, to grow the handicapped bettors, to grow more owners. And once you've been bitten by the bug, it's hard to let it go. So in doing that, we started filming up at Saratoga and with 2 film crews, and we interviewed a lot of people in the industry. And it's actually the clip that I'm going to show you today is a call to action by everybody in the industry, because we all feel so much love and we want to grow the industry and we want to share it with other people. But, you know, a lot of our equine athletes have shorter careers. So we thought that it's best to show the people in the industry, and maybe that would grow as far as people saying, well, I recognize this trainer and this jockey, but we need to grow the sport. There's no doubt about it. So okay. If you want to show the Heart of Horse Racing video on the website, there's a lot of other videos that are there with a lot of great personalities of everybody that's in the sport. So go ahead and show that.
Everything is a machine these days, but we are lucky that we still have these beautiful animals and we can share joy together.
The industry as a whole needs to come together, needs to observe what they think the challenges are in the future and the things that are really working right now.
I think that we're going to get down to maybe 5 or 6 major tracks. I think the little tracks are going to have trouble surviving.
As an industry as a whole, we have to invest in the unity for the growth of the sport.
Everyone that has a smartphone has the access to a wagering account, and I think our challenge is not only competing with those, but hopefully attracting some of those people maybe that haven't watched horse racing.
We have a serious messaging problem with the sport and a big storytelling problem. And I think it's going to take time and a lot of effort to change that.
It's also our due diligence and our responsibility to tell our story because it is such a gift.
I think a lot of people, their first experience coming to a racetrack is a familial thing. They came with their mom, their dad, aunt, uncle, grandparent.
Well, so basically my great-grandpa took my grandpa here and he took my mom here. And since I was like a baby, my parents took me here. It's like home here, basically.
Put your differences aside, put money aside, and only think about what can we do. How can we make our sport bigger than any sport?
We are in a sprint now to make ourselves relevant and exciting again to a generation, if not two. This isn't grandpa's sport. This isn't your dad's sport. This is our sport, and it's now.
I think we're headed in the right direction with you sitting here and I'm talking to you, but I don't think we can do that enough.
I think that's what you guys are trying to accomplish here is to tell the story of what horse racing really is, which is a whole lot different than what people's perceptions are.
Great video, Tina. So how are you getting this video and this message out?
So there is through social media, but we have a plan in place for a paid marketing campaign that we're looking to fund and to launch it this year. So it's a growing thing, but we've got support from individual jockeys that have sent in contributions to the THA, to Fasig-Tipton, there's numerous organizations that have reached out. And I don't think with all of our initiatives here, I don't think that, I think we need them all. I think everything that we're all doing is essential to grow the sport. And whether it's influencers and maybe the Heart of Horse Racing reaches people that don't follow influencers. And so there's all these little niches that I think that to grow the sport, we need all of these initiatives that we're talking about today. And thank you, Gary, for putting this on.
Absolutely. And that segues real well into Price, Bell, and Light Up Racing. I think you're going to find with what Price is about to say is just echoes what you're saying, Tina. It's really all of our responsibility to get the story out and a positive story. So Price, with Light Up Racing, you guys have done made some great strides in getting the positive word out, because we read about so much negative things. I know that a lot of the mainstream press likes to focus on that. So why don't you talk about Light Up Racing, how long you've been around, what it's all about, and I know you've got a video to show.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity. And for the audience out there, thank you for spending your afternoon with us, and for the fellow panelists, it's certainly not without notice. So thank you all, and honored to be here. So Light Up Racing was born about 18 months ago or so in response to some negative commentary around a slew of breakdowns and that were happening at Churchill Downs that were just very unfortunate, and a feeling that, even as someone who has the privilege to associate with horses every day and be around horses my whole life, still a questioning of kind of my social license to do so. Was this the right thing? And so it started really in trying to find the facts, and was led by a woman named Vicky Leonard, who had explored a similar thing in Australia in response to the Melbourne Cup, backlash and just kind of reality. So the end of the day, the Light Up Racing is, trying to bore in fact so that we can be proud of what we do every day, and be proud of what we do to associate with horses and all the care that we do take of horses, and just trying to really cut through misinformation and inform and arm each other with the facts of our sport and all that is being done to take care of our incredible athletes, participants, and horses. So with that, we'll maybe segue into the video.
We're here with Jeff Steele this morning. This is the morning after his surgery, and he's doing really well.
Condylar fracture is generally treated with surgery. The surgery is fixation with screws. In the simple fractures, it's very straightforward.
We're here with Lucky Girl. She just ran awesome. We keep those bandages on just to support, and then we'll start planning for her next race.
Why we inject joints and if we do it too much.
When you do inject a joint, many times it's a corticosteroid, which is a potent anti-inflammatory.
When somebody cites horse racing kills as a source, how do we counter them? What is a classy and efficient way through this conversation?
I learned how many bright, concerned young people are involved in our business.
I think the biggest thing I learned was how I as an individual and how we as organizations can help tackle the fake news and the negative media surrounding horse racing.
Well, Price, the first part of that video was hard to watch, those headlines, all that misinformation and negative information. So talk about how Light Up Racing is reversing some of that and having a more positive impact on the industry.
Well, at the end of the day, we, as the sport has gotten smaller and less kind of, and horses have become less relevant in everyone's day-to-day life. Oftentimes, as an example, my grandmother, was sleeping in a stall with a horse when she was 3 years old, and from her to where our son, who is 10, he knows, he knows horses, but he also knows Minecraft very well, and so there's a great difference in realm between the Minecraft netherworld and my grandmother's horse world. And so as horses have become less and less part of everyone's day-to-day life, we can't assume that anyone knows how a horse's, legs work and the blood supply, or that a condylar fracture isn't, a life-threatening injury. The fact of the matter is horse racing is safer today than it has ever been in its history. And while we will never get to zero, there are more people working to try and make it the safest it's will continue to be. And I think it's all around arming each other with that those facts and understanding and transparency and how horses are taken care of, so that we give ourselves the social license to continue to promote the sport. I would say, and I'll be really curious of Rachel and Aaron and Michael's, opinions, who are really on the front line and are top of funnel for selling our sport in around social license, and how education and how much education they have to bring along new fans and potentially new owners as well. And so Light Up Racing is our attempt to try and arm each other with facts and confidence, so that we can celebrate the incredible sport that we're privileged to take part in.
Well, and as the video said, it's everyone's responsibility. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I got some questions I want to ask of the panelists, and we'll just kind of go around the virtual table and give everybody a chance to chime in. So if someone contacts you to become more involved in ownership, somebody may be brand new or they want to step things up, how do you advise or direct that person about the various forms of ownership? Because you can be a sole owner, a partner, a racing syndicate, micro share owner, a lot of different ways. So Rachel, in America's Best Racing, you guys influence an awful lot of fans. If a fan should contact ABR and say, hey, I want to learn more about ownership, what do I do? Where do you guys point them?
That is typically when we would redirect them to another syndicate, whether that is typically My Racehorse, again, at that entry level. But again, kind of our journeys, we're always there to tell those stories, but we are not the ones that are able to directly offer those services. So again, hopefully, as more and more of those come to light, hopefully once the race bill is enacted, that again will become more accessible and easier for people to find. But we've collaborated with My Racehorse and West Point on tons and tons of content, just to really showcase what that ownership experience looks like for various syndicates. And again, we do huge video productions on race days. We embed with a variety of owners to capture their race day experience. So again, I'm mentioning these two ones that are fantastic and on this call, but we really try and showcase what the ownership experience looks like, or being involved in a horse in any capacity. But if they're asking us, where do I go to find more? Those are the avenues that we would direct people down.
Okay. Aaron, somebody contacts West Point and says, I want to learn more about ownership. How do you guys respond?
I think it's really just meeting that person where they are. If they're just researching, giving them the tools that they need to learn about the industry. And, a lot of people in this day and age, there are a lot of resources out there. OwnerView is an amazing resource for people. There's a lot of information. It's a lot to digest. So I think, we have individual reps who will meet with people and take all the time that they need to answer their questions. And let's face it, this is a big step for a lot of people. This is a big decision in their life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to own a horse. So trusting the people that you're working with and really feeling like it's a relationship business. So I think, we try really hard. We don't try to hard sell people, and really just understand that this is an emotional journey just as much as it is a financial investment.
Okay. I'd like to remind the audience, if you have a question, go ahead and submit it to the Q&A so we can get to it at the very end. So along these same lines, we'll go to Tina. Do you guys, or does anybody offer a form of mentorship for a new person coming into the business? And just I'll go around the table and ask everyone, what do you think of the idea of having a mentorship program if one doesn't already exist? Think we could get owners to agree to be a mentor to a newcomer for a few months?
I think,
go ahead.
Yeah, in our experience, again, everyone that we've partnered with through this Stake and Stardom ownership program, they are coming in fresh. They might have attended a horse race once before, but they genuinely know nothing. So as Aaron said, it's really meeting people where they're at. I think as someone who's a newcomer to the sport only benefits from being embedded in with a group that can really show them the ropes, teach them things. Obviously, whenever these people are our guests at the races, we can still explain things and give them access and get them where they need to go. but it's an entirely different experience when you're in with an ownership group that, say, has a horse running on that day, and you get to be in the paddock with them. You know, watch the race from the winner's circle, go to the winner's circle suite with them. Even if they're not officially an owner yet, I think that makes a world of difference in the experience and the energy, especially if it is a syndicate and being around a ton of other people that are rooting for the same horse.
Okay. Tina, you want to chat about mentorship, and does the bond racing, is that a form of mentorship?
Well, we do a lot of different things. We actually are partnered with NYRA, and we do farm tours during the race meet up here. So it's really great. Last year we did 2 days, 2 trolleys come in. There's probably 55 people that come to do the farm tours. I spend an hour and a half, well, more like 2 hours. Jim comes in and at the end, and they get to ask them all the racing questions. But I take them through the process of how we select, the pedigree analysis, and they get to see foals, and then we show them yearlings and what the conformation is and what they would go through for a sale. And we explain what bond racing is, and if they want to get involved at that point. We have lots of discussions. They get to come and meet with us. It has to be a good fit on both ends, not just for them to like us, but I want to make sure that they put the horse first, that we always do what's best for the horse, and that person would be a very good fit with us. Saying that, we have several meetings. They can come and see the horses. I don't know how many we have. I think there's 25 or 30 horses that we have available, that they can come and look at and talk to the trainers and get a feel for when they're going to start, what their level of, whether they're a grass horse, whether they're a dirt horse. So there's a lot of different things that they can do, and we can expose them to many different aspects of the industry.
Okay. So Michael, you get a new investor who wants to buy some shares in My Racehorse horse. What kind of training, mentorship would they receive?
It's a good question. I think about how I think about brands and marketing. Actually, one of the things that I noticed about the dynamic of the My Racehorse environment and ecosystem is they're actually most engaged, and they learn, I think, the most from other owners. So we try to create kind of a conduit, an environment in which they can kind of participate. So we create these groups and communities around each horse. So there's thousands of people that will be in each group, and they'll be sharing their experiences. And so new owners will ask existing owners, they'll find people that more align with them. Maybe some people it's all about the horse. Maybe some people it's all about the competition. Others it's all about being with their favorite trainer. And so I think I can say whatever I tried through marketing and advertising and communications and CRM to basically communicate what I think is important. But the reality is that the best advertisement, the best mentorship, the best advocacy comes when we facilitate the environment for other owners to kind of mentor the new people in. So we've been more thinking about kind of giving them tools and giving them education, as opposed to actually being the ones educating directly. It's more empowering them to become the stewards and mentors of kind of the next generation of owners.
Okay, good point. Yeah, Price, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that the product that in the entry level, especially product that Michael offers with the My Racehorse is as good a form of mentorship as possible. There's so much transparency. It's important. You're not putting that much money up to buy a share, and you can start to kind of see how it works. Again, there's so much. There's so much to learn and so much information asymmetry, but I think that it's important to just, put a little bit of money up and take the journey with My Racehorse. And if you get lucky with Seize the Gray, all the better, but they're also they're top to bottom. It's just a great, I guess you mostly learn by doing. And I think that they have all the conduits and connections that available.
Okay, and Price, I'm going to stay with you. Now, some would say there's never been a better time to be an owner. Our sport's done a lot to improve safety, medication reform, aftercare. We've got record purses going on out there. So why didn't you believe we're not seeing a significant upswing in ownership? Is it because of some of the negative press that's out there, or why aren't we seeing a big uptick here?
I think it starts with the horse and trying to connect people with horses. At the end of the day, without the animal, then we're just like a digital token running around on a screen. And so I think if we can, the more that we get people and finding horses to connect to is not easier. What our horse population is, dramatically reduced from where it was, and we have fewer racetracks and opportunities as like a turnstile. They're great initiatives like Horse Country or like the NYRA tours that allow people to connect with horses. But I think that as people have gotten older and as the horse is less relevant in their day-to-day life, it's more incumbent on us to connect people with horses. And I think that's more and more difficult because I feel like ownership starts with fan and fan starts with a connection with the horse. And so if we get, pull it back, how do we get more people to connect with horses is, I think, our great challenge. And then, so.
Go ahead.
And then I was just going to say that we're just now coming to a stage where there are entry-level ways of becoming an owner. I think, while West Point is probably, are you 25 years old, Aaron, or thereabouts? And before West Point, there was, there was certainly Dogwood, and then there was certainly Team Valor. But, so in this, industry of syndication in the last, decade, 15 years, the number and opportunities at various price points has really also grown. And I'm hoping that, while there might be fewer individual owners, I'd be curious if you took the aggregate total of people who have pieces of a horse that they care about, it might be greater in number than it ever has been.
Very, very well may be. So, Aaron, you've seen the roller coaster or the pendulum swinging back and forth in ownership. What's your thoughts on where we are with growing the owner base? And again, great time to be an owner right now.
No, I think so. And I think the industry has really latched on. I heard Jason say it in one of the videos earlier about telling our story. We all know that we went through the rough patch where racing was not getting good PR, but now we're in a position where I think a lot of people who aren't, immersed in this world day to day are seeing that a lot of horses are really well cared for, that there are safety initiatives in place, and that there's some really, really cool stories. Like if you look at the Cody's Wish and Carson's Run, just the amazing parallel between those two stories, really, I think drew a lot of people in. And then, doing things like with Griffin and the influencers and showing people the love of the horse. And, I think opening it up to this is, somebody can own a football team and things like that, but this is something where you can really get your hands on the athlete and spend time with the athlete and develop the love and the bond. And, I think that is really special. And the industry has come forward in a huge way in the last, year or two. And, we're seeing a lot of people who are super engaged. And I think back to one of the points you made earlier about mentorship is when people join with us, we say like, listen, you may only buy into one horse, but take emotional ownership in the whole stable. So I think, these syndicates, My Racehorse, West Point, like that's a big part of it, the community aspect. Like a lot of our partners, they may not own that individual horse, but they're at the races, they're watching on TV, they're opening betting accounts. Those are all things that are just going to keep the ball rolling. And they're telling their friends, hey, why don't you turn on the TV and watch this horse that I have an association with? So it's all those little things, the compounding effect every day that I think is just going to help us moving forward.
Okay. I can't believe it's 3:15, but I've got another question or two, and then we'll go to Q&A from the audience so we can wrap things up. So many countries, racehorse ownership is really a part of their culture. Look at Australia, the Melbourne Cup. It's a national holiday when they run that. Great Britain, Ireland, Asia, countries in various parts of Asia. It's part of the culture. So what steps can we take here in North America to make owning even a small part of a racehorse more mainstream? And so, Michael, I'm going to start with you because I think you're in a lot of those countries. What can we do to make it more a part of our culture than it is today?
Well, I think the first thing, I think you kicked off the session with the NTRA and talked about the Race Act, which is super important. I know it's boring, but at the end of the day, you can't have this ridiculous tax to allow entrepreneurs like, West Point and Bond and My Racehorse to be able to get more people involved in the ownership. And then we have to basically have this tax that we have to work with to overcome the both time and money. So remove that, make it more accessible, make basically a little more commercially viable for those that basically want to put these big groups together and kind of get people involved. That would be one. So it's a great foundation that we're doing. Obviously, the second one is that you have to still deal with the economics of it. The reality is that in Australia, their purses are bigger. The economics still work a little bit better right now. Things are improving if you look at purses and things of that nature. But the reality is that I talked to one person when I started this business, and he said, the one thing you're going to figure out is the on average, the person is probably going to lose money if they invest in enough horses over time. So their experiential equity has to be high enough to justify it, right? So if I do certain things and I have a good time, if it costs me a few dollars, I expect that. I go sit courtside to a game, I go to a country club, whatever it may be. So if I spend some money, I'm okay not getting a positive ROI, but I have to have the experiential equity. And I think that the countries that you mentioned have done a phenomenal job of making it really, really fun to own a racehorse and come to the races. The trainers and jockeys and the racetracks have really embraced the racing clubs down in Australia, that their job is to make ownership super, super fun and exciting and interesting. So in case you don't make money, and you probably won't in the long run, right, that you still had a great time. So as our economics improve and the experiential equity we need to do to offset the losses that we accumulate, I mean, rising purses definitely help out. We have to continue to prove the experience that owners get. And there are too many times that an owner goes and has a pretty dull experience. It doesn't always work out great. It's not just a PR problem. Sometimes fundamentally, we actually don't do a great job as taking care of owners and giving them that amazing experience. I think everything's moving in the right direction. And my general consensus on all of this is that time and consistency is going to work. It's going to prevail. Like, you don't see the step change when things are starting to evolve, but over time, if they consistently get better, if you consistently have improvements in marketing, improvements in equine welfare, improvements of the economics, you will see it over time. And everything is about frequency right now. It's so hard to get in people's attention. So this is going to be something that if everybody could commit to this general sentiment that's on this call, if we did it for 6, 7, 8, 9 years, I am extremely confident you wouldn't ask the question about why aren't we seeing rising ownership. You will see it. It's just, as an industry, in my kind of small time I've been with it, consistency is not kind of the thing that we would give ourselves the most credit for. And that's what's going to be needed right now, because there is good momentum. You've got to have it go on.
So Tina, in New York, you've got some of the best racing in all of the U.S. Got a new Belmont Park that's going to open next year. Got the beautiful Saratoga. What's the culture like in New York? Do you think that horse racing can gain a strong foothold in your state? And what about the new Belmont and that experience? What's that going to be like?
Well, the new Belmont, I think, is going to be amazing. The track surfaces are going to be second to none in the country. So it's a very exciting time for New York. The economics to do business in New York is tough. And so that's, that makes it more attractive maybe for some trainers not to come to New York, just on the basics of the economics of it. We need to raise the purses, continue to raise the purses in New York, but we need to cultivate, those fans and those owners to come to the new Belmont. Saratoga can sell itself all day long. There's nothing like Saratoga. It's very, very special. But just because we put a new building there, we need to make sure that the people have a great time there, and the hospitality has to be second to none. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it should be hopefully not that difficult, because they're in the demographics and the population down there on Long Island, it should be a great location to pull from.
Yeah, it should be. Okay. I actually had a couple more questions that I wanted to ask, but we're running out of time, and we do have some questions in the queue. So I'm going to wrap up my questions, and then we'll move into the Q&A period. But while we sort through the questions, please enjoy this from West Point Thoroughbreds, and we'll be right back. Okay, thank you, West Point. All right, so first question in the queue. Curious to hear the view of the importance of getting people to the track to experience the racing live as a means to grow the fan and owner base. So we've kind of hit on that. The horse price. What are your thoughts on how do we get more people to show up and actually enjoy the horse races in person?
We're mowing at the moment. You know, I think that there's just we still have to keep trying things. You know, I think at times like you'll hear, when we were starting horse country, people said, oh, we've already tried doing tours, and it wasn't just the right timing. You know, so whether we, take best practices from other places or try things that we've tried again, and just keep swinging. We don't have, I guess at this stage, we don't have anything to lose, and we should just keep trying. I was excited to see, I spoke to a Frenchman yesterday who they recently rebuilt Longchamp, and they tore down a structure that was about just a little bit smaller than Belmont Park and came back with a very modern structure that's a lot smaller. And he was saying it's become really a popular place to be on Thursday nights, and they adjusted cards. And so maybe there are opportunities to go back. Maybe there's evening racing at Belmont, in the future. And maybe that didn't work in the old Belmont, but it will work in this Belmont. And I just think we need to keep trying things.
Well, Churchill's done some modernization. I know Keeneland's undergoing some big changes. Is it Laurel or Pimlico's Pimlico going through some big changes? So I think maybe that experience, getting people to show up there. So here's another question along the same lines. I've said we need to bring horse to the people in order for the people to fall in love with racing. Keeneland does a great job of bringing people to the horse. Can't the industry encourage all racetracks to do a better job in this? Have the tracks hired a person where that is their position, bringing groups to watch the morning workouts, etc. So same on those lines. Tina in New York.
They do a very good job at Saratoga, but it's something that they need to explore downstate when we get the new Belmont. There's a lot of opportunities. I know that they're working on bringing classes to field trips. They do that in Saratoga as well, that the kids come out and watch the morning training as a field trip. So I know there's talk about doing that downstate once the new Belmont opens. Right now, there's just too much construction to do that. So, to go back to your thing about how you get the people to the tracks, it's just concerning that we're losing a lot of these small tracks because you still get the experience even at the small tracks. So people, if they're not near one of those major tracks, they're going to lose out and not get that on-site experience.
Sure. I grew up going to Little Beulah Park, and it's no longer there.
Gary, interesting to validate the premise or the efficacy of the question. I had run a stat earlier and saw that you were 11 times more likely to buy another racehorse if you attended a physical event. So as important as digital is, and important our social aspect is, we spend a lot of money on technology. I thought it was just crazy to see an 1,100% increase in probability of buying another horse if you actually got out there and smelt it and felt it and were there. So it is a very, very important part of it. We should not lose sight of that when digital and technology is such an important part of how we think about growth. At the end of the day, it's still about kind of that horse and that energy that you get when you get out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'd only add, Gary, in our with horse country, there are 26, 30 or 30 members of horse country. We'll have 9,000 guests come through Mill Ridge Farm. So if all 26 of us did 9,000 guests, there'd be 200,000 people a year coming through our farms and falling in love. And so I think it's not just incumbent on tracks, but really all participants in the industry to try and through entities like horse country, which make it easier, we can hopefully continue to grow that ball forward.
Sure, even going to a horse sale, go to Keeneland, Fasig-Tipton, Ocala. That's just amazing to sit there and watch those horses go through the ring. Yep. Okay, all great points. So here's a question. How are the costs and expenses associated with horse ownership factored into syndicates, micro shares, as new owners are trying to be attracted into ownership? So Aaron, when somebody invests in a West Point racehorse, and I know those models can vary with different racing syndicates. So can you address that?
Yeah, so we syndicate each horse individually, and when you buy, the expenses, most of the expenses are built in through the end of the horse's 2-year-old year. So once they turn 3, you know, hopefully they are excelling on the racetrack and offsetting their expenses. But we just find that that makes it easiest for people when they come in. They know that they have until a certain date, and everything is just built in, and just makes it the cleanest, easiest way to get involved.
Okay.
Yeah. On the My Racehorse side, we have done it where it's no cap calls. When we did the initial research, one of the things that we found is, especially for brand new people who've never owned before, the fear of what the bills could become, the kind of uncapped potential liability, was a big hindrance, even at the microshare level. So we basically built a model in which we pre-funded all the potential expenses, and then, like Aaron talked about, we can kind of top it off with race winnings. And we found that to be a really great way, especially for those that are brand new, to get involved. Then they can learn how much training and transportation, all that kind of good stuff costs, and jockey percentages and trainer percentages. And once they know all that, then it doesn't feel like so much like an uncapped liability, because they have more knowledge.
Okay. Tina, you want to add anything to those?
No, we do a pretty extensive plan to show them what it's going to cost. We do a co-ownership. Ours is structured a little differently. There's only 10 shares per horse, and I keep the majority of most horses. So it's a very intimate group, boutique kind of horse ownership experience, because you're going to have maybe 6 partners, 7 partners with you. So everybody gets to go to the paddock. Everybody gets to go to the winner's circle. So it's set up a little differently, but they understand before they get involved exactly what the costs are.
Okay. One last question. In your opinion, what are the main reasons a fan of racing becomes an owner? Rachel, can you dive into that one real quick?
I mean, to Michael's point, attending and seeing something in person obviously creates a huge influx in that interest. Nowadays, people, I feel like, the attention spans have never been worse. So to give horse racing some credit and just make it clear that this is not just an us problem. And when you zoom out, people have never, been so addicted to social media, constantly scrolling. People are way less interested in hobbies nowadays, especially those that are more high profile or require more money, like golfing, horse ownership. You see a lot less of that in younger generations, also because of the financial commitment and component, but also because people aren't really out there like engaging and living in their lives the way that they used to, and also connecting in communities. So I think that is a barrier to people doing anything in the year 2025, especially the younger and newer demographic that specifically we're after bringing in to usher in the next era of the sport. Okay. I think that once they have those digital interactions, and then hopefully, again, speaking personally, if I'm traveling, I find out what restaurant to eat at by opening up TikTok and searching restaurants in Saratoga Springs, finding a recommendation, seeing a video, and then that makes me take action to go there and show up. And so while digital consumption only is never going to get someone, or very unlikely to get someone, to become an owner and commit to that fully, the journey has to start somewhere. And so obviously we're doubling down on that. Our video views on ABR's channels alone, so this is not accounting for any influencers, in the lead up to Derby, completely organic views, over 76 million. So wow. I would hope that a portion of those people watched the race. By watching the race, they said, I'm going to attend the Derby. That's a bucket list item. They attend the Derby. They see a My Racehorse horse run in the race. The journey has to start somewhere. And I think that it's never giving up and constantly trying new things and new approaches. And eventually, the people that want to be owners will find their way to it. And the unmotivated scrollers are never going to leave their house.
Okay. Well, we've been at this for an hour and a half. It's just amazing. I'd like to keep going, but at some point, you just got to wrap it up. So we're going to wrap it up here. I'd just like to thank all our panelists for your time, your insight, and being here. So thank you very much, Price and Michael and Tina, Rachel, Aaron. Just really do appreciate your being here.
No, thanks for having us.
So audience, Yeah, so audience, if you're inclined to provide support to any of these important efforts, and there are several of them out there, we've heard about them, please use the email address on the screen to make any contact with follow-up with America's Best Racing, Heart of Horse Racing, Light Up Racing, you got the NTRA, My Racehorse, West Point Thoroughbreds. And if you can't write all these down, don't worry about it. We'll have the recorded version of this session up in a couple days, and you can always come back to this. So feel free to reach out to any of our speakers, and I'm sure they would appreciate hearing from you and any kind of support, financial or otherwise. So I'd like to thank our panel sponsors, the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association, Justice Real Estate, but most of all, I really want to thank the owners. As we've talked about here, we've talked about it before, without your investment in racehorse ownership, we just simply don't have a product or an industry. So greatly appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Next month's panel takes place on July 1st, and the topic is developing young racehorses. So until then, enjoy the summer, be safe, and we hope that you visit the Winter Circle and you visit it often. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.